I came home early from my lake cabin because of a storm, only to find police cars pulling up, lights flashing across my front lawn, and the HOA president pointing at me, screaming that I was an intruder at my own house. And when the officers started looking closer, they found signs someone had already been inside. That was the moment I realized this night wasn't going to end quietly. Ha. Act 1. The conflict begins. My name is Mark Ellis. After my divorce, I bought a modest brick ranch on Pine Meadows Lane. Nothing fancy, just a place where I could breathe again, start over, and let my golden retriever Rusty patrol the yard like the loyal goofball he is. That neighborhood came with an HOA homeowners association. On paper, it sounded fine. Keep the lawns neat, the mailboxes painted, the pool clean. Community pride, they said. But in reality, it came with Karen Whitfield. Karen wasn't just on the HOA board, she was the board. Blonde bob, cut cardigan like wet cement clipboard, always smacking against her hip. She'd show up with letters about uncoiled hoses or trash cans left too long, and sign each one with a smiley face, as if that made the nagging less sour. I tolerated it. I told myself patience was better than conflict. I kept my head down. But the storm rolled in early that weekend, and when I pulled into my driveway, Karen was standing on my porch like she owned it. Welcome mat folded over her shoe like a badge of authority. "Officer, that's him," she shouted the moment the first cruiser slid to a stop. "That's the intruder I told you about." I blinked. My bag was still in my hand. Rusty's leash looped around my wrist. "Intruder, this is my house." The taller officer stepped out, hand near his belt. "Sir, can you set your bag down and keep your hands where we can see them?" I did exactly that, though my blood was boiling. Neighbors poured out like an audience, phones up whispering, and there was Karen planting herself on my lawn, chin high, yelling, "He abandoned the property. I had to secure it for safety. We have rules." I showed my license, my keys, even my HOA pool gate fob. The officers checked the address, checked me. But then their eyes caught something near the lock, a faint scratch, a tiny smear of mud, and when one of them lifted the welcome mat, a brass key with a red HOA tag. "Ma'am," the officer said slowly, "why is this key under his mat?" Karen's mouth tightened. "That's not mine." And just like that, the air shifted. Act 2. Escalation and turning point. As the officers studied the evidence, my phone buzzed, doorbell camera notification. Motion detected 12 minutes earlier. Before I could open it, a crash echoed inside my house. The officers drew flashlights, voices sharp. "Police, step out where we can see you." And then someone did. A skinny teenager, hood, half down, pale face in the beam. He held his hands up. I didn't take anything, I swear, his name. Eric Whitfield, Karen's son. And dangling from his neck was another red HOA key. The neighborhood gasped as one. Eric stammered. "Mom said nobody would notice. Just for a night or two. Safer than hanging out at the gas station." His voice cracked, shame bleeding through. Karen shrieked, "Stop talking," but the damage was done. I stood frozen. My own house used like a halfway motel. Humiliated in front of my neighbors, accused of being a trespasser when the real trespassers were the very people claiming to protect us. That night, sitting on my porch steps while officers swarmed, I felt hollow. Maybe I'd made a mistake buying here. Maybe I should have seen it coming. Maybe I was the fool. For a moment, I thought about letting it all slide, packing up, walking away. But then the neighbors shouted, "Check the garage." When the officers rolled the door up, my heart stopped. Stacks of boxes filled the space. Not mine. Stamped with HOA property pending fines. Inside were hoses, basketball hoops, patio umbrellas, even jewelry and wallets tagged with violations. Mrs. Long gasped, clutching her chest. "That's my husband's watch," the Morales twins pointed at a box. "That's our basketball hoop." The crowd erupted. Karen shrilled, "This is standard procedure. Temporary confiscation to enforce rules." Nobody believed her. And then Derek Miles, the HOA treasurer, the quiet man who always sat in the back at meetings, was caught hiding behind my shed with a crowbar in his hands. Under pressure, he broke. "You promised nobody would find out," he hissed at Karen. This was supposed to be temporary. The neighborhood was unraveling. This wasn't about keeping lawns tidy. This was a racket. And I realized then I couldn't let them win. Act 3. The Showdown and Justice. The officers stormed the clubhouse in the pouring rain. Inside, they found cash-stuffed envelopes, files with neighbors' names, even charity boxes filled with stolen electronics instead of canned goods. The HOA wasn't protecting us. They were bleeding us dry. The neighbors shouted, furious. "Thieves, liars, shame." Their years of fines and humiliations boiled over. Jenkins, the old army sergeant, roared above the storm. "You stole from your own community." Karen collapsed onto the grass, cardigan, soaked mascara streaking down her face. She screamed I was saving Pine Meadows. "Without me, there's chaos." But her words drowned under the sound of neighbors chanting, "No more HOA lies." Officers cuffed Derek, first crowbar and keys rattling in evidence bags. Then they hauled Karen up by her arms, her voice breaking into raw hysteria. "You can't do this, I am Pine Meadows." Her son Eric sat pale and silent on the porch steps, oxygen mask from the paramedics pressed to his face after collapsing from the stress. He looked small, broken, not a criminal, just a kid dragged too far into his mother's obsession. As Karen was shoved into the patrol car, the crowd erupted in shouts. Not cheers, but cathartic anger. Years of frustration pouring out in one storm-soaked night. I stood in the driveway, Rusty pressed against my leg, the rain dripping into my eyes. My house was a crime scene, my garage a warehouse of secrets, my neighborhood a battlefield. And in that chaos, one truth burned clear. This wasn't about lawns or mailboxes. It was about control. And control without kindness always rots into corruption. A closing line. Kindness doesn't mean surrender. It means knowing when to finally say, enough. Oh.